Donald Trump, the provocateur, the showman, may not win this election.
During a recent interview, a visibly emotional Lindsey Graham, Republican senator, Trump sycophant, and well-known invertebrate, practically begged Donald Trump to reverse course from his disastrous campaign trajectory, and also practically begged fellow Republicans like Nikki Haley to campaign more vigorously for Trump to compensate for Trump's weakness. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video. As you know, at the moment, and things can change, but at the moment, Vice President Harris is dominating the 2024 election, and MAGA Republicans are in full-blown panic. Lindsey Graham was recently interviewed by NBC, and was asked to comment about Donald Trump's current strategy and the current campaign trajectory. And again, a visibly emotional Lindsey Graham practically begged Trump to reverse course. And for other Republicans who aren't super keen on Trump, but they want the Republicans to win, to basically do more to compensate for their candidate's stupidity and weakness.
The campaign is not going to win talking about crowd sizes. It's not going to win talking about what race Kamala Harris is. It's not going to win talking about whether she's dumb. It's not, you can't win on those things. I think the campaign needs to focus. That's the main thing. Look, this is a winnable election, but you need to focus.
Senator, do you agree with Nikki Haley's assessment?
Yeah, I don't look at Vice President Harris as a lunatic. I look at her as the most liberal person to ever be nominated for president in the history of the United States. She's going to the Soviet Union playbook to lower prices called price control. She wants to eliminate private health care. She's for reparations. She's against fracking. She's for the Green New Deal. On and on and on. So I would make it about policy. A nightmare for Harris is to defend her policy choices. Every day we're not talking about her policy choices as vice president, and what she would do as president is a good day for her and a bad day for us.
And of course, her campaign has said she's actually not opposed to fracking. But the broader question here,
right.
Senator Graham,
how can you be for the Green New Deal? Wait a minute. How can you be for the Green New Deal and not be opposed to fracking?
Well,
that's BS.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Let me ask you, big picture, bottom line me here. Do you think former President Trump should stop talking about Vice President Harris's race and intelligence?
Yeah, I think, in my view, is that me and Nikki need to go to Georgia. We're giving advice on TV to President Trump. He's got a lot of critics. He's got a lot of advisors. But to Nikki Haley and DeSantis and Youngkin and all these great people we have, let's get together and actually campaign for the guy rather than just give advice. But in the advice-giving column, here's what I would say. President Trump can win this election. His policies are good for America, and if you have a policy debate for president, he wins. Donald Trump, the provocateur, the showman, may not win this election. So I'm looking for President Trump to show up in the last 80 days to define what he will do for our country, to fix broken borders, to lower inflation. The numbers that Americans are living with under Harris-Biden are terrible. 50% increase in gas prices, mortgage rates going through the roof, grocery costs are really high.
So it's so funny that Lindsey Graham, just pure cope. If we have a policy debate, Trump wins. Trump can't speak substantively about policy. He never has, he'll never be able to do that. I'm going to do a big, beautiful economy is not a substantive policy debate. Now, he certainly enjoys a perception advantage on some of these issues, usually with the economy, although recent polls have started to show that the vice president is either lapping Trump, finally exceeding Trump, or closing the gap, and on immigration. And we'll get to that part in a moment. But how exactly did President Biden and Vice President Harris raise the price of gas? Again, he's lying. He's presuming that there's some sort of gas price increase lever that the vice president maliciously pulled. Why would she do that, knowing that it would be a political vulnerability for her in the election? And for that matter, if there was a gas price lever, why didn't Donald Trump, when he was president, pull that lever and make it 50 cents a gallon, right? Maybe it's just that presidents don't have any sort of direct control over gas prices. And then you say, well, sure, they don't, but it's about oil Domestic oil production. Well, domestic oil production is higher under President Biden than it ever was under Donald Trump. We are actually a net exporter. We have so much. We have such a surplus. We are exporting American energy and American oil for the first time in 70 years. It's better than it ever was under Trump. So how does that square? Of course, he's just lying, right? He's just hoping that you blame everything from gas prices to the missing sock in your dryer on Vice President Harris. But what's interesting, too, is that Lindsey Graham references the border. What's Donald Trump going to do to fix the broken border? Well, we know what Donald Trump did to try to fix the broken border, and that was sabotage a conservative but bipartisan border bill to try to give himself a wedge issue in this particular election. And if you don't believe me, listen to none other than Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham should listen to Lindsey Graham.
And I regret that. So everybody who comes on this floor and says our border's broken, we should do something about it, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, we didn't get there. President Trump opposed a Senate bill. We couldn't find a better way forward.
Donald Trump opposed the Senate bill, again, because he needed a campaign wedge issue. That's it. So Donald Trump can't be trusted to fix the broken border because he actively obstructed fixing the broken border when it was politically convenient for him. And the more Americans know about that, the gap between Trump and the Democrats on immigration and the border shrinks. So it's really incumbent on Democrats to signal that loudly to the American people and also indicate that they will take a more proactive stance, because whether we like it or not, and I understand that some of my fellow progressives hate this fact, but immigration is a relevant issue. It's a top relevant issue. Poll after poll after poll after poll after poll shows it. And we have to take a stance on it to win this election. And the fact of the matter is Democrats are more credible on this issue than certainly Republicans in the Trump era are. So we have to signal that. Karine Jean-Pierre, White House press secretary, recently clobbered Fox News reporter Peter Doocy over the head. I'm going to play these back-to-back clips for you in which she does that and reminds Peter Doocy and Fox viewers of the Republicans' bad faith on this issue.
So the first one says Vice President Harris was never appointed border czar. There's never been such a position. It doesn't exist. Why are Democrats so sensitive about the vice president and the border?
Why are Republicans so sensitive about actually not owning up to them getting in the way of a border deal? Why? Why won't they own up to that? Why won't they own up to the last president told them not to move forward? It was a bipartisan deal on just right there, available to them, and they voted twice against it.
They did. One more clip from that exchange with Karine Jean-Pierre and Peter Doocy.
Do you think that the border would be less of a talking point now if there was less migration to the border? Say, if somebody had addressed root causes of migration sooner?
Wait, hold on a second. Did you not hear the beginning of I know there were a lot of toppers, but one of the toppers, I talked about what we're seeing at the border. It's down by 55%, not because of Republicans in Congress and what they did. It's because of what this president and this vice president did. He moved forward and took actions to deal with what's going on at the border. Republicans continue to block getting resources to the Border Patrol agents. They continue to block actually dealing with an immigration system. So yes, we are going to debunk the false characterization of the vice president. She was not a border czar, and it's not just us. Independent.
Love it. Absolutely love it. It's so important that when bad faith Republicans like Lindsey Graham or bad faith right-wing reporters like Peter Doocy try to clobber Democrats over the head with this sort of thing for sheer political expediency and cynicism, that we make sure we parlay the facts, which per usual advantage us and disadvantage them, into a persuasive narrative. And yes, as we've talked about in previous videos, border crossings are down considerably because of actions taken by the Biden-Harris administration when Republicans sabotaged a relatively conservative bipartisan border bill. And it's entirely possible that the courts will overturn President Biden's executive actions as they did to Donald Trump when Trump was president, which is why President Biden and Vice President Harris wanted legislative fixes, which are much more sustainable in court. Courts have a much easier time and are much more likely to overturn executive orders because they're the weakest of the fixes compared to congressional legislation. But Republicans predictably acted in bad faith. They wanted a cynical wedge issue to use in this campaign against Democrats, and they got their wish. And so Biden said, okay, well, I guess, I'll throw a Hail Mary, right, to compensate for your bad faith. And so far, crossings are down. So again, it's incumbent on Democrats to give President Biden and Vice President Harris credit for that, make sure the American people are aware of it, and also make sure that they are well aware of what Lindsey Graham said, which is that Donald Trump killed a conservative bipartisan border bill that Lindsey Graham himself not only endorsed, but begged Republicans to vote for because he said it was the best fix that a bipartisan Senate could possibly get. And then, of course, Graham reversed course, as all Republicans did, including Mitch McConnell, as soon as Donald Trump snapped his fingers. So their cynicism, their bad faith, their dishonesty has to be exposed to the American people. And in the meantime, let's bask in the fact that Lindsey Graham is clearly visibly emotional, very upset about the current state of the 2024 election. And in the meantime, you let me know what you think in the comments.